Significant.
Significant. Welcome to Significant Life, the podcast for women who want to live, lead, and serve from an anchored place. I'm your host, Janice Anderson, wife, mother of three, CEO, and lover of all things Jesus. I firmly believe that strong women need an even stronger support system. So whether you need to get it done or come undone, this is a place where you can do it all without second-guessing who you are, disconnecting from those you love, or undervaluing your irreplaceable contribution to the world. Regardless of what you're facing, this I know for sure. You were created to live and enjoy a significant life. Let's dive into today's episode. All stress requires recovery. Can I say that again? All stress, yes. Physical stress, emotional stress, mental stress, all stress requires recovery. Hey, it's me, Janice Anderson, and welcome to another episode of the Significant Life Podcast. And I am so excited about what we're going to talk about today. Grab your pen, grab your notebook, get a warm cup of coffee, and probably grab a friend or two, because this is a must-listen episode for everyone who's experienced any amount of stress at any moment of their life. Hello, that's all of us. As I was preparing for this episode, I decided to do a lot of research. I'm coming off the heels of the Re-Entry podcast episode. If you haven't checked that one out, go and check it out. It talks about how to re-enter back into life after a big day, big moment with ease. And then I realized when I finished that podcast episode that I wanted to dive deeper into this topic. Typically, I go into this topic with the women in the Significant Life community and lots of our programs. We talk about this. We get clear on what stressors are, how our body handles stress, and ways to de-stress. But I wanted to bring the conversation that we have privately here on the podcast for our listeners. So listen, let me say it again. All stress, every ounce of stress requires that you recover. Now, I know you're probably thinking, yeah, Janice, I take a nap. I go to sleep at night, but recovery is much more than a nap. Recovery is much more than, taking a pause for the cause. Actually, recovery is a skill. And so I'm going to dive into this idea of what recovery is and how we can implement recovery as a way of living and why it's significant. So let's just go ahead and define recovery right off the bat. Recovery, according to a Harvard Business Review article, a recent article that I read, and it was pulling out the science behind recovery and stressors and how it's impacting high performers. They brought this definition that I want to bring to you, and it says recovery is the process of restoring symptoms of stress. And symptoms of stress include anxiety, exhaustion, and elevated levels of the stressor hormone cortisol back to your pre-stressor levels. Can we just stop there? I was reading this article and I was like, okay, hello, what are my pre-stressor levels? As a mom of three daughters, one is in her 20s, one is a teenager, and one is a toddler. Hello, what is life like without stress? What was pre-stress like? I mean, just being a mom in general, you're induced or inundated with stressful situations. But then I'm like, I'm a wife. Hello. And even though my husband is absolutely amazing, I'm a wife and I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. That just turns up cortisol. And then I also am the oldest of five. Y'all get it? I don't know if I remember what life was like without stress. So I'm saying to you, what is life like? What is your life like without stress? And so recovery is returning to the pre-stressor levels. Hello, what does that level look like? Okay, but one of the things we understand is in order to return back to pre-stressor levels, to life without stress, I want to go back. I want to say this before I even go there. as I was doing the research on this and I was just really writing, I shared with you in our last episode this article that I read that talked about in the times in which we live that burnout now is not something people experience every so often. Burnout has become a lifestyle for so many. And because burnout is a lifestyle for so many, we live and we expect heightened levels of stress. Think about it. Do you even, when you hear of tragic news, does it impact you any way? Do you feel anything emotionally or mentally? When you're rushing from one place to the next, are you tense at all? Like, do you even notice the difference between having a full schedule or a lax schedule? And if you have a more lax schedule, what do you say to yourself about that? Have you given yourself negative labels like I'm lazy or I'm weak or I'm getting ahead of myself in this? But I just want to reiterate that idea that for many of us, we don't know life without a continually burdensome level of stress. So this idea of recovery is foreign to so many. But after today, all that's going to change. Okay, so we know recovery is the process of restoring symptoms from stress, like the symptoms, the anxiety, the tension, the exhaustion, the elevated levels of cortisol in our body back to pre-stressor moments, to, what it was like when we were at a level of normalcy. And so we realize it is a skill. Number one, recovery is a skill because, y'all, let me tell you something. It's not enough to know that you need to recover. It's not enough to be like, oh, that's a good idea. Recovery sounds really good. Going back to a level where there was no stress. That's nice, Janice. No, it is literally a skill. And because it is a skill, it needs to be developed and it can be developed. Yay. So the good news is it can be developed. And so when we think about skills, we know skills require two things in order to be enhanced and developed. One, know-how. It requires knowledge. We need to know what it is that we need in order to recover. So think about your life. What makes you feel de-stressed? What gives you that feeling of calm, of relaxation? When you're high and, you're tense, you've been working for hours. I know for me, when I was writing my first book, I would write, oh my goodness, for hours. And then I realized that my body, within 90 minutes, that was my threshold. I can write sitting still for 90 minutes, and then I needed to get up. But the way that I knew that I needed to get up, besides the fact that my writing and the language starts feeling dictatorial because I'm tired, my shoulders started tensing. So what was it that I needed to do? What is something that I need to do? A de-stressor is to bring my shoulders back to that area where they're no longer tensed. I mean, a good massage, yes. And a heating pad, maybe. But what is another activity or action or something that brings me down from that tension that I once felt? That's what I mean when I say you need to know. So part of developing the skill of recovery is knowing what your body needs, knowing what your life needs, knowing what your thoughts need in order to come down, to decompress, to de-stress. What is that? But the other thing we need besides knowledge and know-how, we need practice. We need to actually do the things that we say will work for us. So once you realize what your body needs, implementation. So a skill requires knowledge, know-how, and then implementation, putting into practice that know-how. So if recovery is a skill, we need to know what works for us, and what works for us may not work for someone else, or what works for them may not work for you. So walking or yoga or deep breathing, that may not work for you. So we want to discover, okay, if recovery is the skill that I need in order to have a sustainable life, in order to not live on the edge, in order to reduce anxiety and exhaustion and tension, in order to enjoy this life that I'm living, what works for me? So number one, recovery is a skill, and it requires that you get to know what works for you and put it into practice. But the second thing I want you to know is recovery is required and it's responsible. As I was researching this topic, I realized that many people think recovery, just like rest, is optional. But I started looking at roles where it is a required part of the job that you have downtime, that you have recovery. So for athletes, most professional athletes have built into their athletic work schedule recovery time. Did you know that after an intense moment of athletic performance and use of your muscles, if you fail to recover those muscles, and I don't mean just soaking them or relaxing them and not using them, I mean actively recovering them. I'll talk more about that in a second. But if you fail to do that, that you're in danger of overusing them and ripping them and rendering them damage. Now, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's listening, if that is true about your muscles, what do you think is true about your mind, about your thoughts, about your emotions? If you don't actively recover them, exercise a skill of bringing them back to a place of strengthening and support and nurturing them, what do you think will happen? So as I was doing my research, I found that I found another article that the science was proving that in high performance, I want to say it the way that they say it. Hold on. They said it in common fields where extreme performance under extreme pressure is required. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me say this. In common fields where performance under extreme pressure is a part of the job, recovery is necessary. Can I say that one more time? In common fields, and let's just talk about a couple of these fields, just so you'll know what they are. A surgeon, a pilot, and athletes. They call those common fields of performance that have extreme circumstances where performing under pressure is a natural part of the job. Recovery is mandatory. I'm going to lean in a little bit. So you mean to tell me a surgeon can recover, an athlete can recover, a pilot can recover, but you can't recover? Are you saying to me that those fields, those practices, those jobs are so significant and much more important than yours? Wife, mother, sister, daughter, co-worker. Are those the only people you know? Surgeons, athletes, pilots that work under extreme pressure where, it's so much pressure and they have to yet perform? No, I was reading those articles and I was like, where's the mother? Where's the mother button? Why are moms not listed under there? Why are wives not listed under there? Why are older children not listed under there? Why are entrepreneurs not listed under those professions and those fields where there's extreme pressure and we're expected to yet perform? Because hello, ladies, I know you know what it's like to have extreme pressure and to yet be expected to perform. And if those fields make it required for those in those fields to take breaks, to recover, to develop patterns of recovery, what more for you? I just want to put that out there. Number 2, recovery is required, but also recovery is responsible. You know why they require for pilots and athletes and for surgeons to take time of recovery to rebuild themselves and repair their mind? It's because they didn't want them to make a mistake because of overuse of their faculty, overuse of their muscles, overuse of their brain, overuse of their emotions. Well, I read in this article, and I want to read it to you. I thought this was pretty great, that effectively recovering from periods of stress, performance, and concentration. Can I say this again? Effectively recovering from periods of stress, performance, and concentration is important for your emotions, for your mood, for your energy, for your learning integration. Do you know what that means? You can learn, but if you haven't recovered properly from stress, it's going to be difficult for you to integrate what you learned into your life, into your environment. But it's also important for your growth, your ultimate performance, your mental and physical health, and your relationships. Y'all, studies have proven that when you effectively recover from periods of stress, from moments of stress, performance and concentration. I'm so grateful for this study because it doesn't just say I was in an intense situation. Maybe you were intensely concentrating. Maybe you were intensely performing. I was talking to my daughter my oldest daughter, she's been on this workout kick lately. And she started this program and it had her working out 6 days a week, which she did not anticipate. And she was going at it. And some of her workouts were for 2 hours because she wanted to do the exercises well and make sure she get the maximum benefit from the program. And she only had to do this for 6 days. I mean, it's 6 days a week for 2 weeks. She only had to do it for this short 2-week period. But she came over and she literally crashed. She and I were having a conversation right here in my office. We were talking about something. We were deep into conversation. And she's like, Mom, I'm not going to be able to finish this conversation. I'm going to have to lay down. I just need a minute. And when she got up, I said, you're exhausted and you're overexerting yourself. And without time to recover. Now, she was sitting down. She wasn't working out when she was in my office. But she had to concentrate on the conversation. And although she had been working her physical body, to go from working her physical body to now intensely working her mental capacity by concentrating. We were talking about a pretty deep topic and, just her navigating something mentally. So it required that she concentrate and come up with a plan while she and I were talking. She was depleted. She had met her capacity. And without being intentional about her recovery, she was damaging her own self. Ladies, without being intentional about your recovery, you're in danger of damaging you and damaging your relationships. If I wasn't her mom, I could have felt like, you gave all of this time to this working out. You were committed to the family, and now you can't have hold a conversation with me. Do you guys see this playing out in your own lives? Do you see how your inability or your lack of intentionality when it comes to your recovery is detrimental to everything concerning you, including your relationships? Okay, number 3. So number 1, recovery is a skill, so it can be developed. Yay. Number 2, recovery is required and it is responsible. But the last thing I want to say is recovery is immersive. As I was doing this study on recovery and optimal recovery, I realized that optimal recovery is experienced in an optimal environment. Now, some of you are just like me. My kids were asking me, my husband and my children asked me, hey, give a list of what you'd like for your birthday. And every year, it doesn't fail. I'm wanting a day away. It can be a staycation down the street in a hotel not far from our house, but I need a change of environment into something peaceful and something that when I'm there, I don't feel like I have to work or show up. I could just kind of relax and settle into the environment. Or maybe, it's like when we go on vacation, we want to go I remember telling my husband a few years ago, I want to go someplace that is just as beautiful as home. The bed is just as soft as home. I do not want to pay money to spend time in a place that is not at least up to the standards in which I live. Now, I say that because at our home, in our bedroom, and in the girls' bedrooms, we make it conducive for rest. We make it conducive for recovery. It's not just, our beds are not just thrown together. We got something that is comfortable for us. Our pillows are nice. Our mattresses are nice. Do you hear this? I'm intentional about my recovery. I want you to be intentional concerning your recovery. And that requires that you not only think about what am I going to do to get away from this desk, get away from this work, turn my phone off, but what else are you going to do with your environment? Optimal recovery is an immersive experience. It's something in which you unplug mentally, so you detach from the area that was causing you stress. Can I say that again? Optimal recovery requires that you detach, even if it's momentarily, from the area, the situation, the circumstance, the thoughts that were causing you stress. This is not going to be popular, but I want to teach you this as I would be teaching the ladies in our community. if we were having a life class, that may mean momentarily you are detaching yourself from the thoughts about your children if your children are causing you stress. You are detaching yourself from the thoughts about your spouse if you guys just got out of a heated argument. You're detaching yourself from the thoughts about money if money is what has you all riled up. In order for you to recover, you have to disconnect yourself psychologically in your thought life from that thing momentarily. Disconnect yourself physically. And preferably the disconnection from that one thing is now you're reconnecting to something else. This is why often when we are practicing spiritual practices and we're talking about benevolent detachment, as you've heard me talk about here on this podcast, or we're talking about taking moments to do breath work and to meditate on scriptures, we just don't pull away, but we're changing what we're thinking by changing what we're saying. Now, those are just a few things, but also science actually, studies have proven that if you do something more strenuous, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it works, then the last activity, you give yourself the greater chances of actually recovering. So, for example, let's just say I'm stressed out about work. I mean, I'm not, but let's just say I'm stressed out about work. So going and binge watching Netflix, Emily in Paris, I did binge watch it. That may give me a reprieve, but it may not give me a recovery that I need. Maybe going and jumping on my bike and cycling a little bit may be a better recovery because it's now I'm changed my environment. I'm working and I'm using all my muscles and I'm totally not thinking about whatever it is I was thinking about. I'm engaging all of who I am. I'm immersing all of myself into the experience. Does that make sense? Okay, so I wanted to come and give a supplemental episode to follow up from our last episode talking about reentry. I want to make sure that you realize that all stress, if you're stressed out at work, you're stressed out in your marriage, you're stressed out with your children, you're stressed out as you're just looking at your finances, you're stressed out with your friendships, stressed out because of something on the news, all stressors require time for recovery. Now, the last thing I'll end, the bonus is this, is if you haven't figured out by now, you need a recovery plan. Like, hello, we live this life as humans. There are going to be so many moments of stress, and all stress is not the same as the previous stress. Everything is not as intense as a global pandemic or a blow up with your children. But, sometimes things happen and we have momentary stress. Even in momentary stress, we need momentary recovery. And part of the way that we do that here, and we teach in a Significant Life Community, is we build in recovery plans, micro moments throughout our day where we build in recovery, times throughout our week. I have a specific day that is a recovery day in the middle of my week. I literally is looking to the right of my calendar. I have the types of days color-coded. Performance days when I actually show up and do what I do. Like today is a performance day. I'm recording the podcast. I'm showing up and doing what I do. I got practice days where I prep and make myself better. So that is the days that I do the research for podcast, or days where I'm fueling myself and learning more, preparation to be the woman that I am. Prospecting days, those are the days where I am, specifically working on gaining new people into my community. I have personal dates. Y'all can imagine what I do on personal days. And then I got recovery days. And those are days where I actually work on recovering and restoring myself. And the recovery activities for me on my recovery plan, I have things that I know refuel me. Just got a new membership to a new Pilates class that refuels me. Getting on my bike, that refuels me. Things that actually refuel me. And it's not always exercise. Sometimes it's going to the spa. Sometimes it's going to get a facial. Sometimes it's reading a book. It just differs. But I have an active plan for that depending on the time. Is it a day? Is it an hour? Is it a few moments? So as we end this episode, I want to really encourage you to prioritize your recovery as you're entering into the next season of life, your recovery is so significant to you doing it in a way that is sustainable and in a way that gives you peace and in a way that is anchored in what is good and what is true and what is lovely. All right. I pray this was resourceful. If you know that you need help with this and you want to not only establish a recovery plan for your life, but you want to have a restoration process that you walk through in community with other women just like you, head over to isurvivednowwhat.com. isurvivednowwhat.com. I love for you to join us in our 90-day intensive, where it is recovery from life happening, whether you happen to yourself or life happened to you. That is our foundational recovery plan. And the women who've gone through that have seen not only do they have greater resilience and understanding and ability to bounce back, but they actually are equipped to soar through life, to soar regardless of what they're facing. So head over to isurvivenowwhat.com, check it out, and we'd love to have you join us in this next cohort of women. Bye for now.